My fiancé texted me coldly, "Wedding's off. Expect a call from my lawyer." I calmly replied, "As you wish." I was standing in line at Whole Foods, holding a package of Amy's frozen enchiladas and lavender-scented Glad bags when my phone buzzed. The message from Jackson was 8 words that would shatter my world. "Wed's off. Expect a call from my lawyer." No emotion. No explanation. Just a period at the end, like I was some business contract he decided to terminate. The cashier, a college kid with purple hair and a nose ring, had to tell me twice that it was my turn. My hands moved on autopilot, scanning items, inserting my card, punching in my PIN. But my mind was somewhere else entirely, processing those 8 brutal words. I drove my Honda Civic home in complete silence. No music, no podcasts, just the hum of traffic on I-405 and the sound of my own shallow breathing. When I pulled into our driveway, well, what used to be our driveway, I couldn't bring myself to get out of the car. I just sat there for 15 minutes, staring at the house we'd shared for 2 years. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I didn't call my mom or my sister or my best friend Sarah. Instead, something strange happened. A cold, calculated calm washed over me, like ice water in my veins. I picked up my phone and typed back, "As you wish." Those 3 words carried more weight than Jackson could possibly understand. Because what his text really meant wasn't just "the wedding is off." It was "don't contact me again. My lawyer will handle you from now on." He was treating me like an enemy combatant instead of the woman who'd spent 3 years of her life loving him unconditionally. But Jackson had forgotten something crucial. Something that would prove to be his biggest mistake. Just 2 weeks earlier, we'd signed preliminary mortgage documents for a stunning 3-bedroom townhouse in Bellevue. Jackson had fallen in love with the place the moment we walked through the door. He'd already started planning where his home office would go, talking about hosting his buddies for Sunday football games in the finished basement, even measuring the backyard for the outdoor kitchen he wanted to install. To his friends and family, that house was practically already his. He'd been showing off the listing photos like a proud homeowner, talking about his new place with the confidence of someone who'd already moved in. But here's the thing that would soon become Jackson's nightmare: nothing was finalized yet. We weren't married, which meant legally, I was still completely free to make my own decisions about our shared investments. Before I even took off my coat that evening, I marched straight to my laptop, opened the mortgage company's online portal, and stared at the screen. 3 clicks. That's all it would take to withdraw my application and collapse Jackson's dream house like a house of cards. My finger hovered over the mouse. Was I being petty? Maybe. But after everything I'd sacrificed for this relationship, including turning down a promotion at Nike's Chicago headquarters to stay close to his family in Washington, this wasn't about revenge. It was about self-respect. I clicked Withdraw Application. The confirmation screen appeared, "Your mortgage application has been successfully withdrawn." And just like that, Jackson's perfect new life crumbled. My phone started ringing at 7:23 a.m. the next morning. Unknown number. I let it go to voicemail while I sipped my coffee and watched the Seattle skyline through my apartment window. The message made me laugh out loud. "Hello, this is Attorney Davidson representing Mr. Jackson Walsh. We urgently request you return this call regarding your mortgage withdrawal yesterday. This action may constitute breach of contract and could result in significant legal consequences. Urgently." Oh, now Jackson was in a panic. I deleted the voicemail and went about my day. I had a marketing presentation to finish for REI, emails to catch up on, and a Zoom call with my team. Normal life continuing while Jackson's world apparently fell apart. The lawyer called 3 more times. I ignored every single one. Because here's what I'd learned in my 28 years on this planet: silence has a way of making people absolutely squirm. And Jackson, who always needed to control every conversation, every situation, every outcome, couldn't handle being ignored. By Wednesday afternoon, I was getting texts from mutual friends. Casual check-ins that were anything but casual. "Hey girl, just wanted to see how you're doing. Heard things have been crazy lately." That was from Kayla, Jackson's co-worker's girlfriend. "Meredith, call me when you get a chance. Want to grab coffee and catch up." From Jennifer, who I hadn't heard from in months. But the most revealing message came from our mutual friend Ashley. She didn't even try to be subtle. "Did you really pull out of the mortgage? Jackson's freaking out. He already told his parents they'd have a guest room for Christmas and ordered a $3,000 patio set from West Elm. I stared at that text for a long moment. He'd already spent money on furniture for a house he didn't own, for a life he'd just destroyed with 8 cold words. Not my problem, I typed back, then immediately deleted it. Instead I wrote, just looking out for myself, Ash. Her response came immediately, he's telling everyone you're being vindictive and trying to hurt him financially. That's when I actually laughed, a real genuine laugh that echoed through my empty apartment. Vindictive? I wasn't punishing Jackson. I was just done playing games with someone who treated our relationship like a business transaction he could terminate at will. But what none of our friends knew, what I hadn't told anyone, not even Sarah, who'd been my best friend since college, was that I'd been noticing things for weeks. Strange behavior that hadn't quite added up at the time but was starting to form a very clear picture. Late-night texts that Jackson would quickly hide when I walked into the room. Work emergencies that required him to leave at odd hours, sometimes not coming home until the next morning. A coldness that had crept into our relationship so gradually I'd almost convinced myself I was imagining it. The passionate man who used to surprise me with weekend getaways to the San Juan Islands had been replaced by someone who barely looked up from his phone during dinner. I'd started connecting dots, creating a mental timeline of when things had shifted. But I didn't have concrete proof of anything. Just a growing suspicion that Jackson's sudden decision to call off our wedding had very little to do with cold feet and everything to do with someone else. That suspicion was about to become a devastating certainty. Because on Thursday evening, while I was making dinner and trying to process the ruins of my life, my phone buzzed with a message that would change everything. It was from Tyler, Jackson's cousin. We'd always gotten along well at family gatherings, and he'd never been one for drama or gossip. His message was short and to the point, just ask him about Blake. Blake. I stared at the name, trying to place it. It sounded vaguely familiar, but I couldn't quite. And then it hit me. Blake. The name triggered a memory that made my stomach drop. I rushed to my laptop and opened Instagram, scrolling through Jackson's tagged photos with shaking fingers. There, from 3 weeks ago. A group shot at some rooftop bar in Capitol Hill. Jackson wasn't in the photo itself, but there was Blake. Tall, athletic build, the kind of effortlessly handsome that made people do double takes on the street. But it wasn't Blake's appearance that made my blood run cold. It was the date stamp on the photo. March 15th. The same weekend Jackson had told me he was feeling sick and needed to stay home to rest. I'd offered to bring him soup, to take care of him, but he'd insisted he just needed to sleep it off alone. Don't want to get you sick before your big presentation, he'd said. I'd felt guilty that entire weekend, wishing I could do more for my supposedly suffering fiancé. Meanwhile, he'd been out at bars, apparently getting very cozy with Blake if that arm around the shoulder pose was any indication. My hands trembled as I screenshot the photo. Then I started digging deeper, scrolling through Blake's profile like a detective gathering evidence. And what I found there made everything crystal clear. Photos of expensive dinners at restaurants I recognized, places Jackson had claimed he was going to work dinners over the past 2 months. A picture of the exact craft beer flight Jackson had posted on his own Instagram 3 weeks ago, claiming he was trying new things at some brewery I'd never heard of. Even a photo of Pike Place Market from last Tuesday, the day Jackson said he had to work late for a client presentation. The timeline was damning. While I'd been planning our wedding, tasting cakes, addressing invitations, and dreaming about our future, Jackson had been building an entirely different life with someone else. But I wasn't going to confront him. Not yet. Because if there's one thing my corporate job had taught me, it's that information is power, and I wasn't about to waste that power on an emotional confrontation that would give Jackson the chance to spin more lies. Instead, I called the mortgage company again and did something that would protect me from any future legal challenges. I submitted a formal written withdrawal with a certified timestamp, making it impossible for Jackson or his lawyer to claim I'd acted impulsively or vindicatively. Then I did something that surprised even me. I called Rebecca, my former colleague who'd offered me that promotion at Nike's Chicago headquarters. The position that I'd turned down because Jackson had begged me to stay, claiming we needed to be near his family for when we started having kids. Rebecca? It's Meredith Walsh. Is that position still available? Meredith. Of course. We'd love to have you. The offer's actually even better now. We've expanded the role and increased the salary. When can you start? 2 weeks, I said, surprising myself with how decisive I sounded. Perfect. I'll send you the paperwork tomorrow. I hung up feeling lighter than I had in months. While Jackson was scrambling to save a house he couldn't afford on his own and spinning lies to mutual friends, I was already building my escape plan. But I still hadn't heard directly from Jackson himself. No calls, no texts, no attempts to explain or apologize or even acknowledge that he'd just destroyed a 3-year relationship with the emotional warmth of a corporate memo. That silence was about to end in the most shocking way possible. Because on Sunday morning, while I was drinking coffee and reading the New York Times, my phone exploded with notifications. Not from Jackson, from our bank. 37 alerts in the span of 10 minutes, all with the same basic message: attempted withdrawal from joint account flagged for manual review. Someone had tried to empty our joint wedding fund. All $10,000 of it. Money that had come entirely from my year-end bonus at REI, money I'd been saving for our honeymoon and wedding expenses. Jackson was trying to steal from me. I called the bank immediately, my hands shaking with rage. Ms. Walsh, we flagged the transaction because it seemed unusual, the customer service representative explained. The withdrawal attempt was for the full balance of your joint savings account, initiated by Mr. Walsh alone, at 2:47 a.m. this morning. 2:47 a.m. What kind of person tries to drain their ex-fiancé's bank account in the middle of the night? The transaction was declined because it exceeded the daily withdrawal limit for single-party access, she continued. As per your account agreement, withdrawals over $5,000 require both account holders' approval. Thank God for banking regulations. I want to freeze that account immediately, I said. And I want Mr. Walsh removed as an authorized user. I can help you with that. I'll also need to file a report about the attempted unauthorized withdrawal. While I was on hold, waiting for the paperwork to process, my phone rang. Jackson's lawyer again. This time, I answered. Ms. Walsh, this is Attorney Davidson. My client believes he's entitled to a portion of the funds in your joint account to cover his financial losses from your mortgage withdrawal. I couldn't help but laugh. His financial losses? He never contributed a single dollar to that account. Every penny came from my bonus. My client disputes that claim. Then your client is going to have a very uncomfortable conversation with my bank statements. Every deposit is documented and traceable to my employer. Ms. Walsh, I think you're being unreasonable. What's unreasonable is your client trying to steal $10,000 at 3 a.m. like some kind of common thief. Any further communication should go through my attorney. I hung up and immediately called the best family lawyer in Seattle, someone Sarah had recommended when she got divorced last year. Amanda Rodriguez had a reputation for being brilliant, ruthless, and absolutely unforgiving when it came to protecting her clients. Amanda Rodriguez's office, this is Carmen. I need to schedule an emergency consultation. Today if possible. What type of case? Fraud, attempted theft, and I suspect this is just the beginning. By 3 p.m., I was sitting in Amanda's downtown office, a sleek space with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Elliott Bay. Amanda was exactly what I'd hoped for, sharp, professional, and clearly not someone who tolerated nonsense. Let me understand this correctly, she said, reviewing my bank statements. Your ex-fiancé terminated your engagement via text message, then attempted to withdraw your entire wedding fund without your knowledge or consent? That's correct. And he's claiming entitlement to money he never contributed to? According to his lawyer, yes. Amanda made notes on her legal pad, her expression growing more serious by the minute. Meredith, what you're describing isn't just a messy breakup. This is potential financial fraud. Has he had access to any of your other accounts? My stomach dropped. We have a shared credit card for household expenses. We need to check that immediately. The credit card company's website revealed another $3,000 in charges from the past week. Expensive dinners, a weekend hotel stay in Vancouver, even an $800 charge at a jewelry store. Jackson had been using our shared credit card to finance his affair. This changes everything, Amanda said. We're not just talking about protecting your assets anymore. We're talking about filing criminal charges. That evening, Amanda's office sent a letter to Jackson's lawyer that was basically a legal nuclear bomb. It froze all shared financial accounts, demanded full asset disclosure, and put Jackson on notice that any further attempts to access my money would result in criminal prosecution. But Jackson's response to being cornered was something I never could have predicted. Because the next morning, my phone rang with a call that would show me just how low Jackson was willing to go to save himself. It was my friend Natalie, and her voice was shaking. "Meredith, I need to tell you something, and you're not going to like it. Jackson's been calling people. Our friends, some of your co-workers. He's telling everyone you're pregnant and that the baby might not be his." The floor dropped out from under me. "He's saying you cheated on him and that's why he called off the wedding. He's telling people you're unstable and trying to trap him with a fake pregnancy." I felt like I was going to be sick. 8 weeks ago, Jackson had started some ridiculous cleanse diet that meant no physical intimacy. "I want to be in perfect shape for our honeymoon," he'd said. "Just a few more weeks of discipline." He'd known exactly what he was doing, creating a timeline that would make his lies seem plausible. But Jackson had made one crucial mistake in his character assassination campaign. He'd forgotten that Blake had a conscience. The message from Blake came through Instagram DM on Tuesday evening. "I need to talk to you. This has gone too far." We agreed to meet at a quiet coffee shop in Fremont, somewhere Jackson was unlikely to show up. Blake looked exactly like his photos, tall, dark hair, genuinely handsome in that effortless Pacific Northwest way. But his expression was troubled, guilt written all over his face. "I'm sorry," were his first words as he sat down across from me. "I'm so sorry. I never meant for any of this to happen." "How long?" I asked quietly. 2 months. Maybe a little longer." Blake stared into his latte, unable to meet my eyes. "It started as just, I don't know, flirting at work events. Then drinks after conferences. Then weekends. Work events. We're both in tech marketing. Different companies, but we kept running into each other at industry things. Jackson said you two were having problems, that you were controlling and didn't understand his career ambitions." I felt a bitter laugh escape. "Controlling. Right. He said you were trying to hold him back professionally, that you got jealous when he had to travel or work late. He made it sound like your relationship was basically over already." Classic Jackson. Rewriting history to justify his betrayal. "But that's not why I wanted to meet," Blake continued, finally looking at me directly. "Meredith, the things he's saying about you now, they're disgusting. And they're lies." "What exactly is he telling people?" Blake's jaw tightened. "He's claiming you hit him. That you were emotionally abusive and manipulative. He's saying you threatened to ruin his career if he left you, and that you're making up a pregnancy to trap him." Each accusation felt like a physical blow. I'd never laid a hand on Jackson in anger. I'd been nothing but supportive of his career, his dreams, his ridiculous hobbies and expensive gadgets. I'd given him 3 years of my life and unconditional love. And this was how he was trying to erase me. "There's more," Blake said, his voice barely above a whisper. "He's been documenting things. Taking screenshots of your text messages and editing them to make you look unstable. He showed me some of them, and I know they're fake because I know what actually happened on those dates." "What do you mean?" "Like this one text where he claims you threatened to kill yourself if he left you. But I know that text was from the night you were worried about your mom's surgery results. You were scared and looking for emotional support, not making threats." The manipulation was breathtaking in its calculated cruelty. "Why are you telling me this?" I asked. Blake was quiet for a long moment. "Because I realized what kind of person he really is. And because I found out he's been lying to me too." "About what?" "About you. About your relationship. About why he needed to end things carefully, instead of just breaking up with you months ago." Blake leaned forward, his voice intense. "Meredith, he wasn't planning to leave you for me. He was planning to have both of us." My blood ran cold. "What?" "He told me he needed time to disentangle his finances from you before we could go public. Said you were vindictive and would try to destroy him financially if you found out about us. But really, he was trying to figure out how to keep the house, the wedding fund, all the joint assets, while also keeping me on the side." "So why did he suddenly call off the wedding?" Blake's expression darkened. "Because his parents started asking too many questions about wedding details. They wanted to meet more of his friends, including some work colleagues. He panicked that I might show up at the wedding or that someone would mention seeing us together. So Jackson hadn't called off our wedding because he'd fallen in love with someone else. He'd called it off because he was a coward who couldn't manage his web of lies anymore. I have screenshots, Blake said, pulling out his phone, of him talking about how to manage the situation with you. How to make sure you didn't get half his stuff if things went south. He showed me messages that made my stomach turn. Jackson strategizing about how to paint me as unstable. Jackson researching Washington state's laws about financial responsibility for ex-fiancés. Jackson literally plotting to destroy my reputation preemptively. I'll testify, Blake said firmly. In court, to your friends, to anyone who needs to hear the truth. What he's doing to you is evil, and I won't be part of it. That night, I forwarded everything to Amanda. The screenshots, Blake's contact information, a detailed timeline of Jackson's lies and financial manipulation. Amanda's response was swift and devastating. We're going on the offensive. By the time I'm done with him, Jackson Walsh will wish he'd just been honest from the beginning. But even I wasn't prepared for how far Jackson would go to save himself when he realized his lies were unraveling. Because the next morning brought a knock on my door that would change everything. Meredith Walsh? The police officer was young, probably fresh out of the academy, with a serious expression that made my heart rate spike. Yes. I'm Officer Martinez with Seattle PD. We've received a report of domestic violence and harassment. I need to ask you some questions. The world tilted sideways. Domestic violence? Mr. Jackson Walsh filed a complaint alleging that you've been stalking and threatening him following the end of your relationship. He's provided evidence of threatening text messages and claims you've been showing up at his workplace. I stared at the officer, speechless. In the 3 days since Blake had told me the truth about Jackson's lies, I hadn't contacted Jackson once. I'd been too busy working with Amanda to document his financial fraud and build our case. Officer, I think there's been a mistake. I haven't contacted Mr. Walsh at all since our breakup. Do you mind if I see your phone? Just to verify recent communications. I handed over my phone without hesitation. Officer Martinez scrolled through my recent texts, calls, and apps while I stood in my doorway feeling like I was living in some alternate reality. I don't see any recent communications with Mr. Walsh, he said, looking puzzled. May I ask if you've been near his workplace recently? I work downtown, about 6 blocks from his office building. But I haven't deliberately gone anywhere near his workplace. Officer Martinez made notes in his report. Mr. Walsh also claims you've been using mutual friends to gather information about his personal life and romantic relationships. That one was partially true, but not in the way Jackson was framing it. Our mutual friends have been calling me because they're concerned about the stories he's telling about me. And yes, someone did tell me about his affair, but I didn't ask them to spy on him. What kind of stories? I took a deep breath. Officer, Mr. Walsh has been telling people I'm pregnant and tried to trap him with a fake pregnancy. He's claiming I was abusive during our relationship. None of that is true, and I have documentation proving he's been spreading lies to cover up his own financial fraud. Officer Martinez's expression shifted. Financial fraud? He attempted to steal $10,000 from our joint account after breaking up with me via text message. My attorney has all the bank records and documentation. The officer closed his notepad. Ms. Walsh, I'm going to be honest with you. Something about this complaint didn't feel right when I got the call. The alleged text messages Mr. Walsh provided seemed inconsistent. Inconsistent how? The formatting was off. Different from how iPhone messages normally appear. And some of the timestamps didn't make sense. Officer Martinez looked directly at me. Do you have an attorney? Yes. Amanda Rodriguez. He nodded approvingly. Good. I'd recommend you contact her immediately and let her know about this complaint. If Mr. Walsh is fabricating evidence, that's a serious crime. After Officer Martinez left, I called Amanda in a panic. She was furious but not surprised. He's escalating because he knows we have him cornered, she said. But filing a false police report with fabricated evidence was incredibly stupid. Now we have him on multiple criminal charges. What happens now? Now we destroy him legally and professionally. I'm filing for a restraining order against him based on his harassment campaign and fraudulent police report. And I'm sending everything we have to the district attorney's office. But Amanda's next words chilled me to the bone. Meredith, you need to be prepared for this to get worse before it gets better. Cornered narcissists are dangerous. They'll burn everything down rather than admit they're wrong. She was right. Because 2 hours later, my boss called with news that made me realize Jackson was trying to destroy not just my reputation, but my entire career. Meredith, we need to talk. Someone called HR claiming you've been using company resources to stalk an ex-boyfriend. Can you come in tomorrow morning? Jackson was systematically trying to dismantle my life piece by piece. But he'd forgotten one crucial thing about me. I wasn't afraid of starting over. The HR meeting was brutal but brief. My boss, Janet, had worked with me for 3 years and knew my character. When I explained the situation and showed her Amanda's documentation of Jackson's lies and financial fraud, her expression shifted from concern to anger. So he's trying to get you fired as part of some revenge campaign? Janet asked, reviewing the timeline Amanda had prepared. It seems that way. My attorney believes he's trying to isolate me financially and professionally, so I can't fight back against his false accusations. Janet closed the file. Well, he picked the wrong company to mess with. REI doesn't tolerate harassment of our employees, especially not from vindictive ex-partners. I'm documenting this conversation and flagging your personnel file so if he tries to contact us again, we'll know exactly what we're dealing with. Walking out of that meeting, I felt something I hadn't experienced in weeks. Hope. But the real turning point came that afternoon when Amanda called with news that would change everything. Meredith, you're not going to believe this. Jackson's lawyer just called wanting to settle. Settle what? Everything. They want to make this whole thing go away quietly. No criminal charges, no civil lawsuit, no restraining order. In exchange, Jackson will pay you $25,000 and sign a non-disclosure agreement. I was quiet for a moment, processing this development. What does that mean? It means he knows he's screwed. The district attorney's office found merit in our complaint about the fraudulent police report. His own lawyer probably told him he's looking at potential jail time if this goes to trial. What do you think I should do? Amanda was quiet for a moment. Honestly, I think we can get more. But more importantly, I think we need to consider what you actually want here. Do you want justice, or do you want to move on with your life? That night, I sat in my apartment looking out at the Seattle skyline, thinking about everything that had happened. 3 weeks ago, I'd thought I was planning a wedding. Now I was planning a completely different life. The job in Chicago was waiting for me. Blake had provided a sworn statement detailing Jackson's manipulation and lies. The police report had been dismissed after Officer Martinez submitted his findings about the fabricated evidence. Jackson's reputation in our social circle was in ruins after several mutual friends came forward with their own stories about his lies and manipulation. But most importantly, I'd rediscovered something about myself that I'd lost during those 3 years with Jackson. I was stronger than I'd ever imagined. The next morning, I called Amanda with my decision. I want to take the settlement, but with modifications. I want $50,000, not $25,000. I want a written apology acknowledging his lies about the fake pregnancy and abuse allegations. And I want him to pay for my moving expenses to Chicago. That's aggressive. He might not agree. Then we go to trial and let a jury decide whether attempted theft, fraud, and filing false police reports are worth more than $50,000 in damages. Amanda laughed. I love working with clients who have backbone. Let me make some calls. Jackson's lawyer called back within 2 hours. They agreed to every single demand. 2 weeks later, I was standing in my empty Seattle apartment, boxes packed and ready for the moving truck. The $50,000 settlement had been deposited in my new private bank account. The apology letter was framed on my kitchen counter, not because I was proud of it, but because it was proof that sometimes, justice actually prevails. My phone buzzed with a text from Sarah. Any regrets about leaving? I looked around the apartment that had housed so many dreams and plans that turned out to be built on lies. Then I looked at my plane ticket to Chicago, where a promotion and a fresh start were waiting. None whatsoever, I typed back. As I walked out of that apartment for the last time, I thought about Jackson's original text, "Weds off." Expect a call from my lawyer. He'd been right about one thing. There had definitely been lawyers involved. But the wedding being off? That turned out to be the best thing that ever happened to me. 3 months later, I was thriving in Chicago, working for a company that valued my skills and integrity. I'd made new friends, found a beautiful apartment overlooking Lake Michigan, and started dating someone who understood that honesty and respect weren't negotiable relationship requirements. Jackson, according to mutual friends, was still in Seattle, still single, and still trying to repair his reputation after word got out about what he'd done. Some people asked if I felt bad about how everything ended, if I thought I'd been too harsh in pursuing legal action. My answer was always the same: I didn't destroy his life. I just refused to let him destroy mine. And sometimes, that's the most important thing you can do for yourself. Because when someone shows you their true character through cruelty and manipulation, the kindest thing you can do for both of you is to believe them the first time and walk away with your dignity intact. I'd learned that love without respect isn't love at all. It's just a beautiful lie waiting to collapse. And I was finally free.